Welcome everybody. We'll get started here very shortly. Yeah, definitely get familiar here with the Goldcast. There is a Q&A tab there. So if there's any questions that anybody has, definitely put those in over there. I'll be back with everybody shortly. All right, it's top of the hour. We'll give everybody a moment longer for everybody else to come in. Thanks for joining us today. Again, those that just came in, get familiar with the Goldcast interface there. There's a Q&A tab there. I'm not sure if it's on the same side as me, but it's kind of top right there. And if there's any questions, you can go and type those in as we go through the session. Most likely I'll answer the questions at the end, but if there's any that are pertinent that I see prior, I'll definitely jump over those. We'll get started here about 2 minutes past. All right, so I go and let you know who I am. In fact, let's go a little bit larger here. So that's me, Mike or Michael Nolte, Senior Application Engineer, Elite AE, which is a reseller classification there. Essentially, I've gone through lots and lots and lots of testing. I've actually been in the VAR reseller channel for, it's going on my 17th year now. So, all right. So I'm not seeing any additional people jumping in. So let's kind of get started here. I'll make myself a little bit smaller for a little bit, and then I'll eventually turn that camera off there. All right. So let's see here, going on to the next slide. So this is me. So I live out in Arizona. No, it's not all desert. I live in about central Arizona, but they consider it, they kind of call it northern Arizona as far as where I'm at. So kind of a little bit off center, but we get snow here every so often. But again, that's me. My little thumbnail of who I am. I haven't done the tent camping recently, but again, it's all dependent on time with the family and all the events going on and stuff. But yeah, it's interesting, the term fixer, builder, maker. I've been a maker since I was in high school. Just on a whim, not even for a school project, I ended up making a power supply for a laser. So, but all right. Yeah, looks like we've got a couple of additional attendees here before we get into the meat of things. So this is a slide that I always like to bring up these days because this is one of those things that GoEngineer is pretty proud of. Is our electrical team is actually the largest SOLIDWORKS electrical team in the world. So we're a excellent resource as far as the SOLIDWORKS software products. So if I don't have an answer for something, somebody on my team probably does. So we're definitely a large team there. All right, and this just kind of gives you an idea of just our core team for services. So we were scattered pretty far across the U.S., all the way from Pennsylvania all the way to California there. So I'm number 7 there on the map. But it's been a while since I've been in the same time zone as my manager, so I'm currently not in the same time zone currently. So, but all right, so let's go and get into the meat of things here. So the first thing we're going to be getting into is license types or license types. With SOLIDWORKS Electrical, it's very similar to other license types of the SOLIDWORKS products. Um, some of it may seem familiar, some of it may not seem familiar, but in fact, let's go and bring up that next slide here to start diving into some of the specifics of it. So in our world, there's kind of two things as far as licenses goes. There's perpetual and then there's term. Perpetual is what you think as a traditional license type. And of those, there's standalone and network, meaning if I bought a standalone license, that's mine forever, whether I pay yearly maintenance or not for that, it's my license or my company's license. Network, very similar. You buy the license, it's a little bit more money, but it's a floating license. So network and floating are kind of interchangeable in terms. The network advantage, though, is you could buy one license of the software, and then you could install it on 3 machines, and then whoever launches it pulls the license. When they close the software, it releases the license. So you may or may not be familiar with that. One sec. Um, so the forever part of it is, it's kind of an interesting thing to think about, because when you get a license, yes, it's yours, but that doesn't mean you get all the yearly service packs and technical support side of things. So if I pay yearly maintenance, which for a large majority of our customers do that, then you get all the new service packs, the new version when it comes out, and then it gains you access to the GoEngineer technical support and even up. So if our technical support guys need a question answered by SOLIDWORKS Corporate, then we have that resource to us. So that's kind of the perpetual side of things. It's a traditional, what you think of a license. Standalone licenses can be activated, deactivated, moved to a different machine, that type of thing. Network, same type of thing. If IT moves your license server to another machine, you have a way of doing that. On the other side of the screen here is term licensing. This is a newer-ish concept. Newer-ish meaning probably 3-4 years, something like that, maybe even longer. And the idea behind it is you pay a slightly different pricing scheme. So I say, okay, I want SOLIDWORKS Electrical Schematics for 6 months or something. Well, you pay that amount, and then you get it for 6 months. Included with that, though, is the technical support and any service packs or new versions that come out during that time frame. As soon as 6 months elapses, then you can either opt to renew it, or the software shuts off. So it's kind of a newer concept. It's almost like a lease type of thing, if you will. But and again, we use the terminology of term license. That also can be done a few different ways as well, as standalone or network. And again, the same advantages there. If we do standalone, well, you can still release the activate it on another system. Also with network costs and stuff. So those are the two primary, well, I guess 4 if you count it. So perpetual, standalone, network, or term standalone or network that you deal with as far as licensing of SOLIDWORKS Electrical. And that also applies to SOLIDWORKS CAD and some of the other software, SOLIDWORKS Simulation, SOLIDWORKS Composer, other products like that. So the new kid in the room is a license scheme called named user license. And we'll get to that towards the end of this webinar. The thing to take away or to know about this method is it's the user that contains the license. So, okay, Bob in the electrical department, well, it's his license. Depending on where he's at is where it's actually consuming or using that license. So kind of like network, but not quite like network. So again, we'll get into that one as we go a little bit further. So that's kind of the licensing kind of realm of things, which I don't see any questions at this point. So I'll keep on progressing forward. Again, if there is a question, there's that tab that says Q&A. You can certainly type those in, and again, if I don't get to them, I'll get to them at the end there. So we covered licensing, and then I'll kind of talk about where those fit into the different types of electrical. So this is where we're getting into the types of electrical. This is the part that gets a little confusing or convoluted sometimes when you have everything in front of you, what's available, what can we do with it, that type of thing. So that we're going to dive into that aspect of it. So above you see the schematic, and then 3D down below. So we'll get into those pieces there. So this is a slide I put together so we can kind of step through the different electrical products. The current offering as of January of 2024, right? Electrical schematic standards. So all of these, you put the name SOLIDWORKS at the beginning. I cut that off just to keep the names a little bit shorter, but SOLIDWORKS Electrical Schematics Standard. This one, if you just need a foot in the door, you want to start using and documenting your wiring schematics, this is the one to look at. Which I guess let me preface that a little bit further in detail. One of the things when I used to do a lot of demos in the early days of the SOLIDWORKS electrical products, people thought that the electrical software did circuit board design. That's not kind of the wheelhouse or the industry, if you will, that the schematic software is around. Schematic software is intended for electrical schematics, pneumatic schematics, and hydraulic schematics, documenting that in a 2D form in most cases, and we'll talk about the 3D as well. So schematic standard is the base version, and then we get into schematics professional. So this is electrical, well, let's do the full name, SOLIDWORKS Electrical Schematics Professional. The majority of our users get into schematics professional. That's probably 90% of our customers get into that, at least initially, and then they'll expand and go into different areas here. So from here, then we start talking about some of the other products here too. So we have electrical 3D. So that image that you saw on the previous screen is the ability of taking a schematics that is in 2D and then bringing it into a SOLIDWORKS CAD assembly or a SOLIDWORKS Mechanical assembly. So that's a separate license, just like these other ones. So there's Schematic Standards, one license, Schematics Pro is another license. And then, well, let me move to the next slide here. We have another creature, and again, I don't quite understand the naming convention myself, but I would have almost called it electrical box kit or combo kit or something like that. But so the difference here is kind of subtle. We have Electrical Schematics Professional, and that's a standalone program for drawing schematics. And I'll go into more detail when I get into additional pages here. But so you have Schematics Professional, you have Electrical 3D, but then we have another creature that is called Electrical Professional. Electrical Professional is the combination of Schematics Professional and Electrical 3D. So it's actually those two products under a single license. So that red box is essentially encompassing what that one is. So that's the general lay of the land for machine-based, network-based versions of electrical, and we'll get into the specifics of each one. In fact, I'll even give some brief examples of that. But the next creature or product is this guy, SOLIDWORKS Electrical Schematics Designer. So that's the new kid on the block. If you've seen any information about 3D experience, 3D experience platform, or just the platform. This is the flavor of SOLIDWORKS Electrical Schematics that works on that platform. And again, I'll get into that. It's very similar to Schematics Professional, but there's definitely some key subtle differences there. So we'll get into the specifics here. Okay. All right. So something to kind of, I guess, snapshot in your mind as far as the different levels here, and then we'll get back into it here towards the end. But all right, so let's talk about Schematic Standard. So this is the base version. Let's talk about its capability. I'm not going to show Schematic Standard, but I will show Schematics Professional, and we'll talk about the differences there. Okay. So Schematic Standard, kind of the idea behind it is one purchase, one install. That's kind of the easiest way to explain it or describe it. And the reason we kind of describe it that way is you don't have to piece part modules. So we don't have to get something that does multi-line, a different package that does harnessing, or if we want to do reports, it's all part of that one license. We don't have to do a mix and match of it. So you see the bullet lines there of the capabilities that you can do in there. So electrical, hydraulic, pneumatic, schematics, all those are in that software. One thing to point out, though, about Schematic Standard, well, I guess one thing, there's a few things here. One is the license type. So going back to what we started talking about, Schematic Standard can only be acquired as a standalone license. So it could be perpetual standalone, or it could be network standalone. There is no, I'm sorry, I worded that wrong. Let's scratch that and let's word that one more time here again. So Schematic Standard can be perpetual standalone or term standalone. There is no network. So that's where I screwed up when I said it the first time. So you can't do network licenses with Schematic Standard. So that's one little ding against it. Some of the other things to be aware of is Schematic Standards are intended to install everything on a single machine, meaning that we can't do server client setup. So I can't have an electrical server and electrical clients or multiple clients connecting to that one electrical server. That's just not a capability of that particular version, which also lends itself to, okay, I can't have collaboration. So I can't have two users in the same project at the same time. But again, you need to get your foot in the door. Schematic Standard is that one. Some of the other items to be aware of is little to no report customization. There is reports in the software, so don't get me wrong, you can't do reports. So if I did a bill of materials or a wireless report, those are there. It's just you can't do your own customization to it. And then we get into some of the nitpicky type of things, like there is no connection or capability of attaching it to electrical 3D, which you'll learn what that is here shortly. And then some of the other things, I call them wizards, but dynamic PLC wizard, and then dynamic connector symbol wizard. Those do not exist in the Schematic Standard version. So again, fully capable. It's just depending on your level of engagement and interaction and collaboration, then there's definitely well, the next level up to look at. One thing I do want to point out, though, that very last line there is with all the versions of the software, you can get to the electrical content portal. And what that is a website that SOLIDWORKS Corporate and Dassault being the parent company of SOLIDWORKS, that they host files that you can download into the software. So you can go get manufacturer parts, you can get symbol libraries, whole wealth of different things from that website. So all versions do have that electrical content portal access. So you don't lose out on getting stuff that you might need for building out your schematics there. Okay, so let's move on to the next one here. Okay, so next one being Electrical Schematics Professional. The schematics, again, going back to that first slide here, so Electrical Schematics Professional. This tends to be the one that a lot of our customers find that fits their need and their business model very effectively. Yes, it is a little bit more money than Schematic Standard, which, okay, by the name change, you can kind of tell that. But it is the top version, which some of you may be familiar with the SOLIDWORKS Mechanical CAD product line, where we have SOLIDWORKS Standard, SOLIDWORKS Professional, SOLIDWORKS Premium, but that's the mechanical side of things. On the electrical side, we have Standard and we have Professional. Again, at the time of this recording, there is no Schematics Premium, so there's only two levels of schematics here. So that being said, this kind of gives you an idea of some of the capability here. And I'll go into a few of these as we kind of dive in. In fact, I'll even I'll bring it up so you can see it. But everything is in the one license. So if I want to do a standalone, meaning, again, not talking licenses, install. So if I wanted to use a network license, but I wanted to install the client software and the server software all on one machine, I can do it with this one. If I want to do a server client install, I can do that also with this. You don't have to pick out a different flavor, if you will, as far as which one to grab there. The advantage of server client setup, though, is I could have one electrical server, 5, 10 clients connecting to that electrical server. Again, this is irrespective of your license type. So I could be 5 standalone licenses, or I could be 5 network licenses, okay? But the advantage of having multiple clients is they're all connecting to the same server. They have the same libraries, so your symbol libraries, your manufacturer part libraries, your templates, title blocks, all that stuff. All your library items are all a single repository for them. Again, in a ideal world, everybody's at the same facility. I word it that way because every company's got a different way of setting up, and that also kind of dictates a further conversation if people are working remotely. But getting back to my original point, so if you had 5 clients all connected to one electrical server, it also gets you another capability that we kind of label real-time collaboration, meaning you could have 2 people, 3 people, a whole bunch of people opening a single project and working on that same project at the same time. And project is a term that we use describing essentially the file that is package, meaning all of your drawing pages and all your reports and all that type of stuff. So the point that I was getting at is you could have, say, 2 people open one project at the same time, and then both working in that same project, just on different pages. You wouldn't be able to work on the same drawing page at the exact same time, but you can work on different pages at the same time. Again, scalable, depending on, okay, I'm just a single person working on my machine, everything's loaded up on my system, or I have a whole department of electrical designers drawing up wiring schematics in the software. So definitely opens that door as far as connectivity and that type of thing. Some of the other things go into the features of the software itself. Dynamic connector, which I actually have an example of. PLC tools, again, something that makes that type of job much easier if it fits the bill. If you do PLCs, if you don't do PLCs, then it may not be necessary. And then full capability of customizing the reports there. So But all that being said, let's go and jump in and take a look here. So I'm going to go and open up the Electrical Schematics Professional. So I already have a project open. In fact, I have a couple of projects open. And I've got a few pages already being displayed here. So this very first page that we're looking at is a three-phase wiring schematic. But you'll find as you acquire the licenses, you take training, that type of thing. The training is only one industry. It tends to lean heavily on the three-phase industry. But by no means that is not the limitation of the capability in the software. All that being said, you can use this software for documenting basically anything that's got wires in it. I've seen medical, aerospace, I call them black box companies, where you get into military type of thing, but essentially they have a device that they create or a piece of equipment that they create, and they need to do the wiring in that particular piece of equipment. So yes, this particular example is three-phase motors and that type of thing, but it could be a stepper motor, it could be proximity sensors, it could be any gambit of that type of thing. Harnessing is also another big thing that comes into play with the software. In fact, I'd say more than half of the customers we talk to these days request a demo, want to look at it in further depth, is harnessing. I think that's probably a good possibility that it might be even more. So Schematic Standard or Schematics Professional would be able to do that first page. This page, though, then we start getting into at least one of the functionalities that is unique to Schematics Professional. So this is an example of a PLC symbol, ANSI in nature. But the thing about a dynamic PLC is, okay, I've got this PLC, and say maybe I needed to turn off or get rid of one of the outputs here. So I can easily get rid of the symbol, come into my components tree, which that's another big thing about electrical, is it's constantly keeping track of your components. I can reinsert the PLC, and the act of turning off one of these little check marks, now my PLC is a different length. In fact, let me hold it up there. So now it's shorter. If I was to turn that back on, now it's longer. So I don't have to draw a separate symbol just to illustrate a change on what I'm needing to account for. In fact, let's go and turn that one off. Drop this guy back in. We'll go and remove the extra wires that we don't need. And then we'll go and move the wires that are powering this. So I'll actually grab those and we'll move those up into place. So very quickly I can focus on, well, the schematic and not getting the PLC to look the way that I want it to. So that's dynamic PLC capability in Schematics Professional. Another one, getting into the harness side of things, is a project similar to this. This one's a very simple example, 3 connectors, so not a whole lot to it. Yes, you could do this type of thing with Schematics Standard, but the exception to that is the connectors themselves. So these 3 connectors are done with a dynamic connector. I was going to call it a symbol, but it's a configuration file. It's basically a file that dictates the look of it, and then the number of pins that we pick dictate how many there is. So I'm going to go and jump to another blank page and kind of show you this dynamic connector out of the box here. So I'll jump over to another page, and then I'm going to go and grab one that I already have, and I'll go and say insert connector. So I have an 8-pin connector there. I could decide orientation, all that type of stuff, so that's not an issue. But the big thing is, though, okay, so maybe I don't need 2 of the pins. So now the connector has changed in size. In fact, if I turn those back on, you'll see that it's 8 pins. And if I turn off, I'll turn off 3 now. So now I'm down to 5 pins there. Well, maybe the order in which the pins are is not the way I want to display it. I can change that order. So I can take pin 1 and put it at the very end of the list there. So when I go to place this on the schematic, now I'll zoom into that and you'll see that pin 1's at the bottom, and then based off the sequence that I did. Again, dynamic. The fact that I can, on the fly, pick out how many pins I'm going to use, and I could put, well, you get some of those military connectors. Was it the 38999 military connectors? I think I'm getting that part number right. But you could put like 10 pins on this page, and then you can do another 20 pins on another page. It allows you to dynamically kind of split that into multiple pages there. And if that connector wasn't correct for this page, I would just go through, delete it, and then go and reinsert it back in again and pick out the number of pins that I want to do. This time I left it in order there. So that's another advantage of Schematics Professional, besides the collaboration side of things. One other thing to kind of get into is reports. So this is a kind of a report I threw together a while ago for a harness, basically kind of outlining where things are coming to and from and that type of thing. Out of the box type of report wouldn't have this much detail in it. So, well, there might be some that have more detail, but I think the specific detail I was looking for, I guess, is a good way of saying it. And then with any reports, these can be produced as drawings like what you saw, or you can also do Excel exports or anything like that. So again, that capability is either version, Schematic Standard or Schematics Pro, the Excel export. The customization of a report, though, that's Schematics Pro. Okay. All right, and I'm not seeing any questions there in the Q&A section, so I'll keep on going. So let's talk about kind of the next product here. So we talked about Schematics Standard. We've talked about Schematics Professional. So now let's go and bring up the PowerPoint here again. And let's talk about Electrical 3D. So what is Electrical 3D? So the biggest part of Electrical 3D is, and you'll see I kind of make reference to this on the next page, is a digital twin. And that's kind of a buzzword these days, is okay, whatever is in physical life versus what's in the virtual environment. But it's a very fitting term in the sense that, okay, yes, I have a schematic, but how does that mean it's going to get wired up in real life? And 3D allows you to plan that out virtually before the device even gets built. And you could also come back, and if the device is built, you could, well, you could build it out in virtual and then maybe even do rev changes or theoretical rev changes, that type of thing. Something to point out about Electrical 3D is that it is a add-in for SOLIDWORKS CAD. So yes, Electrical 3D is a separate license, but you do have to have a license of SOLIDWORKS CAD, so SOLIDWORKS Mechanical. It could be any of the three. So it could be Schematic Standard. I'm sorry. Let's reword that. Let's say it correctly this time. So it could be any of the three versions of Schematics Mechanical. So it could be, I'm still saying it wrong. Any version of Mechanical CAD, so SOLIDWORKS. Let's just say the name here. So SOLIDWORKS Standard, or SOLIDWORKS Professional, or SOLIDWORKS Premium. So you need one of those licenses. So Mechanical CAD, Standard, Professional, or Premium will work with the Schematics Professional. Again, trying to straighten out the thoughts here and causing a little bit of verbiage confusion here. And I'll bring up that image that I did earlier, just to bring that back home again. The other part of it, though, too, is you still need a license of Schematics Professional somewhere in the company to use Electrical 3D, which let me let me get into that here a little bit. Go on to the next slide here. So the wiring to and from all the different components, and I'll bring up a 3D model here. All of that the information that drives that is done in the schematic software. So you have to have Schematics Professional to be able to draw up a schematics. And then when we drop in our components, we're referencing the same component tree that is developed on either side, Electrical 3D or in the schematics software. And then the routing of the wires is done by the information that comes from the schematic itself. So without schematics, it isn't something that is something they can use. And we're not at that point where AI can reverse engineer it. I can't draw up or tell the point-to-point in 3D and then have the software create a schematic for me. There just isn't that capability in the software yet. So again, the biggest part of why companies get into electrical 3D is well, this isn't a perfect digital twin. You can see the images are not identical, but that's the idea, though, is you can have something in a virtual environment as in a physical, which also lends itself to this next kind of bullet point, is the fact that we want to consolidate or validate our electrical bill of materials and our mechanical bill of materials. So we want to make sure that those are in sync with each other, making sure that we have all the electrical components that are going in a cabinet or out on the device, sensors and that type of thing. So it gives us a tool to validate that very quickly, that our bill of materials are accurate. So the other part of it, though, too, is we can make panel drawings and harness drawings very easily. So if we're building it in 3D, then a 2D drawing for production's sake is definitely a very valid use of it. In fact, we do have some customers that tie electrical assemblies into instruction sheets, so they could basically do shop floor instruction PDFs or interactive documents, depending on to what level you want to push that type of information to the production floor or external vendor. So so that illustration there at the bottom definitely is, you need SOLIDWORKS CAD and electrical 3D, which I guess technically I should also have another plus in there, that you need the electrical schematics software as well, and that allows you to kind of get that digital twin there. Okay, so let's go and dive in and take a look at electrical 3D here. So so this is SOLIDWORKS CAD, so different product. So the schematic software can run on a machine that doesn't have SOLIDWORKS CAD on there. So you don't have to have schematics on a machine running electrical 3D, but you do need it somewhere in the building, because that schematics needs to be created. As far as the add-in goes, again, because it's a separate license, you come into the add-ins, you turn that on. Okay? So I've launched SOLIDWORKS CAD. I'm turning on the electrical 3D license there. And here in just a moment, we'll get an extra little tab that shows up on there, right there, letting us know that it's ready to go. So some of the other aspects of kind of consolidating electrical departments and mechanical departments is getting the right information between the two departments to be one and the same. And to that point, we have access to the same library. So if we had an electrical server and we had multiple schematic users, we had multiple electrical 3D users all connecting to that same electrical server, the manufacturer libraries would be the same. So this same manufacturer library I have access here would also be the same one that is accessed over on the in the schematic software itself. Again, Schematics Professional, because that's what we're able to connect to the 3D here. So that's there. So I'm going to go and open up a project here in 3D. And while I'm doing that, one of the things I want to point out is when we're doing, or when you're talking about licensing side of things. So electrical 3D does um, allow standalone or network, and it can either be perpetual or it could be term. So all four of those that I showed on that intro slide, you can do as electrical 3D. So I could do a perpetual of a network license of 3D. So I could float that, and then it would always be my license. Or I could do a 12-month term of it, see if I liked it, and used electrical 3D. And then at the end of the year, I could either extend the perpetual network license, and then or even acquire a electrical 3D perpetual network license. So there's lots of kind of options there as far as license capability. So as I zoom into this model, this one has already had the wires run, and mind you, the information is kind of stored in the model. It's stored in the schematic. So when I route the wires, I'm not having to draw each one of these individually. It's a command up here of either routing wires, harnesses, or cables. So we essentially get everything defined, and then we tell it to run the wires. There's obviously some training and behind the scenes that goes on there, but it is a true point to point. So we're coming from one device all the way down to the other device, and it is capturing that information of where the wire is going. In addition to that, though, another big advantage is we capture the lengths. So the length of the wire, length of the cable, that type of thing. In fact, if I bring up one of the reports, again, could be accessed on the in the schematic software, it could be accessed on the 3D side of things. But if we come down and pull up one of the reports, say a wireless report, oh, one sec. It has decided to go behind everything. Give me one sec here. Stand by. It's a problem when you're broadcasting. You've got so many things on your machines. It's fighting me to come to the foreground here again. All right, let's see if we can get that to relaunch here. All right. Gave it too many things to do right now. Okay, there we go. Let's take a second look. All right, there we go. All right, so let me go and grab that project here again. Grab that assembly. There we go. Let's see. So where was I going? Oh, the reports here. So yeah, let me go and get those to open up here. So I've got my project open, and from whether I'm in schematics or I'm in on the 3D side of things, I can go into my project, open up my reports, and then if I wanted to look at a wireless report, well, I actually have my wire lengths that are actually coming from the 3D model. Yes, they're in millimeters because this is a millimeter project, but the running of the wires gives me the actual length of those virtual wires. So now I can start working off of bill of materials and while accounting for how much how much supplies I need as far as bulk wire if I'm building this out in house there. If you're outsourcing it, well, this is definitely a very beneficial thing for getting an accurate quote. It's like, well, okay, I know that we need X number of feet of actual red wire of what gauge it happens to be. So so report information is there, and it's instantaneous as far as the ability. On the flip side of things, besides reports, then we can do, well, regular drawings, right? So I'm opening up one of the drawings here. And this drawing is, again, the 2D version of that digital twin there. So I have all the components and I have all the wires. Oh, I forgot to change that paper size here. Let's get that changed. Nope, it's not that size. It's going to be that size. So we have all of the components. Again, we could go through and we could add labels to these. There is a tool in here for adding component marks to each of the devices. So that's there as well. Again, this is, well, SOLIDWORKS CAD, right? So we're not restricted to just black and white. So we could actually even bring in a 3D image of that on our drawing. And again, just dealing on the 2D side of things. But sky's the limit as far as kind of what your outputs might end up being for the software. So that's one project as an example. So let me go and show you a different one here. Again, I mentioned that we've got a lot of customers that do harness stuff these days. So I've got an example of that to show as well. Again, the schematic itself is what we saw over in the other software. So we see that there. But then when we get into the 3D model, still need to add some splices. So I left myself some notes there. But I drop in each of the connectors and define which one is going to be which device in there. Okay. In fact, I think I've got, yeah, let me bring up the PowerPoint here. I've got an example here. So this is that same concept. So I can go from wiring it, individual wires. So it actually does split out into the separate pins. I can do a flat pattern of that harness. So I can show distances and lengths and all that type of stuff. And then we can also do our drawing. So all that is the electrical 3D capability on top of the schematics side of things. So the schematic itself is drawn in Electrical Schematics Professional, but then to kind of get, well, this capability, then we're looking at electrical 3D. Okay. All right, let's see. When I talk about electrical servers, these connecting to an SQL database, that's actually a very good question. So as far as electrical itself, it is SQL database based. So whether you're running standalone or you're running a server client setup, all of the products are based off of an SQL database, a physical file. So there is a physical network share, if you will, and then also a Windows service. So as far as talking about the licensing side of things, when you run into, in fact, let me jump back a few slides here. So let me go back to, need a better way to jump between slides here. So we go back here. So schematic standard is only going to allow you to run on SQL Express, and that ships with the software to install. And then that's what gets loaded on the client machine. Again, schematic standard is all self-contained. When we get into these other versions, so Schematics Professional or Electrical 3D, they still ship with schematics, or sorry, they still ship with SQL Express. And that's, we've found that is pretty adequate up to 5 concurrent users. So you can run, I'll say like 3 people running Schematics Professional. At the same time, you maybe have 2 people running Electrical 3D. So 5 concurrent people working on that same electrical server at the same time, and that's SQL Express. When you get into more users, then we recommend acquiring your own license of SQL standard, or if you already have licenses for it, you could utilize SQL Enterprise. You're not going to get any benefits or gain over SQL Standard versus SQL Enterprise, but just by going from SQL Standard to SQL, sorry, let's say that one more time here. So going from SQL Express to SQL Standard, you are going to gain more CPU access and more RAM access. So user experience is going to be better. So no, good question. It is SQL based as far as that goes. And it's a little different than some of the other products. So if anybody's familiar with the our SOLIDWORKS PDM Professional, the interaction between clients and servers is definitely a little different. If there is questions on that, I definitely recommend reaching out to your GoEngineer account manager or GoEngineer electrical account manager and getting some more specifics there. So excellent question. Thank you for that. All right, so back to the PowerPoint. Oh, look at that. I was able to jump ahead where I needed to. All right, so now that you've seen electrical 3D, so I talked about Schematics Professional, and I brought that up, and all of its capability. And then we also have electrical 3D, which I brought that up and kind of give you an overview. Electrical Professional. So notice we dropped the word schematic out of the name there. So this is SOLIDWORKS Electrical Professional. That we call a combo box. Good and bad of it. The good of it is it's in some cases it may be slightly less than buying Schematics Professional and Electrical 3D separately, but Electrical Professional includes those. The drawback, though, is when somebody fires up one of those items, because Electrical Professional is counted as one license, it consumes the other. Meaning, if I fired up Schematics Professional, well, I couldn't have another user using the license for Electrical 3D or vice versa. Whereas if I bought Schematics Professional by itself and I bought Electrical 3D by itself, again, all the different licensing stuff still applies. Those could be run separate. So if you had two separate licenses, one for Schematics Pro, one for 3D, I could have two people working simultaneously. But again, all depending on the need there. So, which to that point. So yeah, single license for both products there. The licenses can be standalone or they could be network. Again, there's a lot of kind of back and forth as far as stuff goes, and you kind of have to keep it keep licensing separate from server stuff. So we have a SOLIDWORKS Electrical Licensing, which is standalone or network, and that is irrespective of how we're setting up the actual usability of the software, meaning server client setup. So if I did a network license, but then I did, well, everybody had their own separate install on their machine, then that would work fine. It's just no shared libraries. But if I did a network license and I did an electrical server or server client setup, then okay, we'd share libraries and we'd also have floating licenses. Okay. All right, so let's jump into the new kid on the block here. So this guy, so Electrical Schematics Designer. So I've got a little cloud there up in the corner to kind of give you a hint of what this is about. But Electrical Schematics Designer is based off of the Electrical Schematics Professional. So you get the same capability as Electrical Schematics Professional, but it is a intended cloud version of electrical. And I think cloud is a overused word, but let's define it in context of this product. So for this Electrical Schematics Designer, you still install onto a machine. It's not true cloud-based where I'm accessing the software in a web browser. I'm not going into Chrome and accessing or using the software in Google Chrome or Microsoft Edge. So Electrical Schematic Designer still gets loaded on a machine. There is no server per se for this product. It is just loaded up on that client machine. But really what it comes down to is a company that, well, as you can see in that first bullet point, that doesn't have an infrastructure and never wants an infrastructure. So you could have users all over the place. When I want to share a project from one electrical schematics designer, so a person that is using that software, they would actually push the file or the project that they're working on into a company-specific collaborative space. So that's where the file would be stored at, and then somebody else could pull it down. Same thing if I produced a PDF from the software, that PDF could be pushed up to a collaborative space on Dassault Systems Cloud. Again, company specific, so it's not publicly shared. It's a private cloud, and then you could do collaboration within the company there. I guess the interesting thing about this software is it gets rid of the boundaries. So if I have people all over the globe, and essentially well, anybody could be working on a project. When they're done with it, they push it up, somebody else pulls it down, and then they could continue working on it, especially when you're talking overseas. Well, nobody's available at the same time. So the other part of this, though, is this version uses the licensing of named user. So I mentioned that at the very beginning. Named user being, well, whoever is assigned that license is the one that is allowed to use it. Mind you, they could have it on a few different machines, and they just log in with username and password. But that is restricted by that. There's no live collaboration with this version, though, at least not yet. The other part of it is, in fact, let me go to the next slide here. There is no, currently there's no electrical 3D option for it at this time. It's in the works, so we hear, but we haven't actually seen anything. Slight differences here is we have, you can see this little red box there on the screen. That is the tools to push and pull it from the collaborative workspace. So again, getting rid of the server, if you will, and then all information is stored up at the workspace there, or the collaborative space there. Okay. Same idea here when we get into library items. So this is the symbols management. So if I created a symbol, I could share it with the rest of the company of other electrical schematic designer users, and we would just have that collaborative space that I would push that symbol to. And it does have one slight additional advantage that kind of gets overlooked or not mentioned with the machine-based versions, is the locking and unlocking of assets. So library items, I could lock a symbol, so somebody couldn't upload a replacement of that symbol. So, but all right, so let's get over to the last slide here. Let me go and change my view here just slightly. Bring myself back up online. See if I can actually turn on my camera. Again, that's me. So again, I'm Mike or Michael Nolte. Again, I've been with the reseller channel for quite some time, using SOLIDWORKS Electrical and teaching SOLIDWORKS Electrical since the early acquisition of the product. So definitely been around. My first recommendation would be to reach out to your GoEngineer account manager. or your GoEngineer electrical account manager, and they can certainly get you in contact with somebody like myself or one of my colleagues to be able to answer any additional questions. Or go out to goengineer.com. That also has lots of information under the products drop down there. Yep. So let's see. I do have, I think, looks like one other question there. Oh, no questions. Just a thank you. I appreciate that. And that's actually pretty much it as far as today goes. I do have one other slide just because it's good to know some of the other products. And this isn't even a complete list yet, but this is some of the products that GoEngineer and different things that we do offer. So not just SOLIDWORKS products, but pretty full spectrum as far as items that we offer, like Exact Metal and 3D Velo and MakerBot. Those are all our 3D printer departments. So Exact Metal is a 3D metal printing. So if you need something like that, either buying a piece of equipment or needing some work done, we offer that as well too. So, but let's see. Yeah, if there's any questions here. Quick question about versions, compatibility across different versions. To my knowledge, you can bring a schematic standard into schematics professional, no problem. You can certainly go back from schematics professional to schematic standard, but then you lose some capability, i.e., so if I had a dynamic connector created, I don't know how that's going to come across if I ported that over to a standard version. The cloud-based version, so Schematics Designer, I know we can certainly bring in projects. I would need to get you in contact with one of my specialists in that particular product as far as getting a project out. I think there is some capability. I just don't know the actual picks and clicks there. So electrical 3D, I mean, it's kind of same rules that apply there too. In fact, that kind of applies across the board. As if a project or an assembly is opened in the, say, the 2023 version and saved in that version, we can't go to prior versions. That's pretty stock standard across all the products there. But any other questions? Yeah, and it looks like we're right on time there too. So leave the poll, leave it open here for just a moment and see if there is any additional questions. But other than that, that's actually the wrap for today's webinar. So hope everybody got something out of it. And we should be able to have this available on our YouTube channel here very shortly. My understanding also, though, is Goldcast does allow you to rewatch the video within, I think, 36 or 48 hours or something to that effect. So if you did miss a piece of it because you stepped away, you should be able to watch that as well. But again, we'll get this actually published out on the website, so, or the YouTube channel. So excellent. Thanks, everybody. Don't see any additional questions. Not a problem. Have a good rest of your afternoon.